Hey guys, welcome to TGS. We've got Nick Horten with us here today to do a part 3 of the steel shot test on his old Spanish gun that he's now been using for about 2 and a bit years.
Yeah.
Please go back and check out part 1 and 2. But as a special for this part 3, we're going to do a quick test on this gun, and then we're going to go, because people have mentioned in the past that of course this Spanish gun will take it, and go and stick some steel in an English gun with lighter barrels and a bit of choke and see what happens. That should be quite exciting.
Yes.
So, another thing before we get started, we are filming this mid-coronavirus, so please, guys, stay at home, stay safe, and, well, we've got one high-risk person here. But
yes. Yeah. And not entirely due to my age, I've got to mention it because it's got, excuse me, some bearing on the amount of use that the gun had this year. I ended up in hospital with some fairly radical surgery, but it was accompanied with sepsis, blood poisoning. And the end result of that is that it's left my immune system slightly depressed. So I'm being especially careful. But in the run-up to it, I actually got out less towards the back end of the season than I might have done.
So this gun potentially has fired a few less cartridges than it would have the previous season.
Yeah, and certainly on top of the last running total, which was round about the 250 mark, it's had another 50 cartridges odd, bar one or two through it thus far, but they were all, in fact, well, they're not 3-inch cartridges, but they were all Ely Lightning 3-inch cartridges.
Magnum steel proof.
Magnum steel.
Saying, yeah.
Obviously no point in putting the standard steel because they're designed for guns like this, and there would have been no potential damage.
So a quick note before we go any further as well. I've had a few requests from people to really outline the difference between a standard steel and a Magnum steel proofed cartridge. We've covered the gun, meaning that anything can take anything nitro proof can take standard steel as long as the shot size is accordant with the choke, and Magnum proof steel requires a fleur-de-lis and a CIP proof stamp. The cartridges, and this does require quite some intelligence because unlike me, you'll have to read the boxes when you pick them up, not just look at the top and go, yeah, that looks like something I would like to buy. We have two options here. We have a steel game from whole cartridge. That is a high velocity load. And we have a steel shot Mammoth 3-inch from Game Ball. On the box here, it says quite clearly, please note these cartridges are suitable for use in guns with chambers of 70mm or longer. Guns must bear a valid nitro COP proof mark for standard or superior high performance steel. That is a standard steel cartridge. When it says just requiring a nitro proof, that is standard steel. It is marked several times in this Game Ball box. It says Magnum high performance there. If you didn't get that, you probably didn't read that far. And on the side it says make sure you're using less than half choke is ideal. And on the other side, somewhere here, it says Magnum steel shot, only to be used in Magnum proofed guns with 3-inch chamber, nitro proofed 4 tons per square inch, high performance steel shot cartridges. It's quite evident, but you do need to read the small print.
Yeah.
So that is the difference, and that is how you tell, is just to pick a box up and go, like it says on the box. Unless you've got anything else to add to that.
I don't think so. The only thing that might be worth kind of airing at this sort of juncture is that one of the most oft repeated sort of framework for the use of a steel gun is the one that appears on the BASC website, which is a straight lift from the CIP regulations. It's got nothing to do with BASC. It's entirely the European CIP regs that it's quoting. Those particular regulations quote the size of shot of number 3 as being the cut-off point, if you like, for the transition from standard to high velocity steel. But for reasons best known entirely to themselves, the Gun Trade Association in its sorry, I had to stop there. As my brain gets older and softer, it's less able to cope with external noises like that. The Gun Trade Association elected to make the same point, but to use the shot size number 4, Well, the reason for that is that lead and steel shot sizes are frequently measured differently. Steel shot are basically ball bearings that are manufactured frequently in China for a whole variety of industrial purposes. They're not specifically made for use in shotguns. The size of shot number 3 in steel is 3.25 millimeters.
Yes.
Whereas the UK lead shot size, that is closer to a number 4. So I think it's just worth making the point that if you read the two separate sets of documentation, they both mention a different figure, but it's slightly taken out of context because it doesn't tell you what the actual measurement of that pellet size is. If that makes sense.
Yes. I do feel like an intelligent move to ball bearing based millimetric size would be really wise across the board.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that would make
Life so
it
much
easier
easier.
to converse with people about it, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Certainly when you have import cartridges and domestic cartridges with different bloody shot sizes.
Yes, yeah, and because there are no standard shot sizes in lead, different countries have got different sizes.
But we all use the same millimetres.
Exactly, but the millimetric size, particularly amongst home loaders, was something that was settled upon by one particular vendor of loading equipment. But then when he sold the business, it was kind of moved away from and went back to English shot sizes, and the level of confusion just went through the roof.
Alright, so would you care to hazard a guess whether we've had any expansion or wear in your barrels at all?
I'd like to think not. The only thing that I've done differently, if you remember, because this is a warts and all test, there is a slight ring bulge at the end of the left barrel of the gun, which I suspect is down partly to the choke profile, but also to the fact, well, it's down to three things. The fact that I habitually loaded a number 1 cartridge into the left barrel and a number 3 into the right, and as we've already determined elsewhere, this particular Spanish gun is made of chocolate, and the hardness of the metal is nowhere near that of many other more modern guns.
Right, well, you'll be happy to know that nothing has happened particularly whatsoever. We still have the same bulge, the same swell on that left-hand barrel. There's that double rivel in the top, and I can't remember whether that was there last time, to be fair.
I think it was.
Yeah,
it took me a while to pick it up. Your eye is more tuned than mine, but it's been the same since I've managed to focus on it.
Yeah, it's just that little double rivel there, which is a shame. And then your right-hand barrel, I'm trying to decide. I think has a very slight bulge in it, very, very slight. Why don't you sort of tell me whether it's just
Yeah, I mean, in the interest of everybody not going to sleep in the meantime, because it takes me a while to get my eye in, I think you could be right.
yeah, ever so slight.
Yes.
But as we've said and we established, you've had one little issue with this gun this year, and through taking it apart and having a look, it is quite buttery.
Yes, I mean,
you know, you sort of thing you'd pick up at auction for 40 or 50 quid on a good day.
yeah. And as we know,
so you're probably not going to lose any sleep if you get a gun like this and shoot steel out of it and get a little bulge.
yeah, and I think one of the important parts of what we're doing is to look at it like this. Not to throw your toys out of the pram and say, oh, the steel shot has bulged the barrel, but to look at this more as part of an exploration almost of the unknown, in that now my advice might be Yucata guns appear to be made of a slightly softer metal, and there might be issues in terms of ring bulging, in which case it might be better to take more choke out than was the case
Yes.
with
or to be
this
very
gun.
selective with your taper of your choke, which we established last time. It was
Yeah.
cut as opposed to tapered.
Yes.
It would be an interesting thing potentially if we could one day have enough time and effort and energy to do it with a variety of different guns and see the result.
Yes, and again,
but-
I think perhaps because we're looking into a sort of long telescope at the future of this, it would be nice at some point for someone to do some work on barrel hardness. And it would be nice to think that at some point in the future you might be able to look at a published list, particularly of older guns, because let's not forget there's lots of newcomers to the sport who can't afford £2,000 or £3,000 for the latest all singing, all dancing,
yes,
steel-proof gun. And
not that now they're having to spend a lot of money on cartridges.
Well, it's if you've for guns at a potential entry level. It would be nice to look at a list and say, well, yes, for AYA guns, the generally speaking,
we tested 100. They were like this,
and the hardness of the metal fell within these parameters.
Well, I don't think that would be a bad public service. I might get a Rockwell hardness tester and actually test, and because you could test all the number threes with all the serial numbers and put the test in, and
exactly.
it would give at least a reference chart.
Yeah.
Don't hold your breath, but it may happen.
No, and also just again finally to mention it in terms of the sort of the general quality of this. Towards the back end of the season, the last bird that I shot with this gun last year was a Canada goose, and it was a good 45 to 50 yards away, and I was using my Ely 3-inch Lightnings. I hit the bird, which was hard hit, but I shot it a bit too far back. So the second shot would have been with the compensating amount of lead, which would normally have brought it down dead. Unfortunately, what had happened in the meantime was that the safety catch had virtually disintegrated, and the recoil put the safety on. So when I was about to pull the trigger for the second time, the bloody safety catch is engaged, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? Fortunately, I got a good dog. The dog retrieved the bird, and the day was saved. But it's just to make the point that this gun, yes, it looks okay externally, but it's a whole litany of issues of the Spanish gun trade with the quality of the interior finish.
It's very pretty externally, though. Look at the positives here.
It is. Is it worth just mentioning in passage?
Yeah.
These.
Of course, please.
We often talk about recoil with steel cartridges and weight of gun and all the rest of it. And a while ago, I was given a box of these, which is Canadian Imperial 3-inch Magnums dating from the 1970s. Now, it's a long story to this that I won't bore you with, but I had another box of these from the same source back in the 1970s. And at the time, I was shooting a Webley & Scott made 3-inch chambered Greener Empire with the top safety, a 3-inch ejector, 32-inch barrels, lovely gun. Despite its 8-pound weight, it handled like a game gun. But I fired half a box of these Canadian Imperials and shot it off the face. The recoil on these things is vicious. Now, technically, this gun...
I presume these are outside of CIP.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, they were Canadian made for the North American market, but they were available in this country at a time when one of the favourite cartridges for wildfowlers was the 3-inch Winchester XX.
Yeah.
This is 1 ounce and 7/8, virtually a 2 ounce.
And this was at a time when you could use...
And it's lead, of course.
Lead, yeah.
And it was indeed at the time that you could use lead. But I just kind of throw that into the mix because a lot of people have got the idea that there are a lot of potential damage issues with steel. Well, let's not forget that many years ago, and at the other end of the scale, even with lead, things were not always all singing and dancing.
Very good.
So that's going back in the box as a curio, in case some cartridge collector is interested. And even if I could, which I can't at wildfowl, but whatever might be available to shoot them, I am not firing it through that gun because they make your nose bleed.
All right. So we have some 28 gram 5s, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
Let's go and find a gun or a couple of guns, and we'll see out in the field. So here's the victim, Nick. A W. Richards of Liverpool. Box lock ejector. 29-inch nitro-proof barrels with, feels like,
Very little and a bit.
yeah, pretty much I'd say cylinder and 3/4 chokes.
Yep. I've got a box of EVIP 28 gram steel cartridges. Perhaps it's worth mentioning at this stage that when you're selecting a steel cartridge, it is worth looking at the gram weight, in as much as 28 grams of steel occupies the same volume as 30 or 32 grams of lead in round figures. So with a light gun, if you're currently using 32 grams of lead, you might like to consider reducing the gram weight to something like 28, because the pellet count will be the same, but the recoil will be considerably reduced. And just to make the point, as these are straight out of the box, that these are in fact steel cartridges, I brought a large magnet with me, which, as you can see, is sticking to the shot inside and simply
Just to prove we're not liars.
just to prove that we're not liars.
Well, that's always nice, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't feel like we have to, but we
No.
have.
But there are so many people out there with so many bizarre ideas about steel. Any of the little sort of rat runs of criticism that we can remove, so much the better.
Right, given the condition of this gun, I'm going to shoot one at a time, just in case it goes boom.
Why not?
Not that I'm fearful, but it is a very lightweight gun.
Yes, and I will stand behind you.
Please do. Get your emergency sensors on speed dial with firing steel for a nitro-proof side by side. Alright, are you ready? Here goes nothing. Come on. Test the other barrel. Well, safety catch is quite stiff, isn't it?
It is a bit.
Right, choke barrel. That ejector doesn't work very well. Thank you, Stuffer.
Yes, sir.
Cool. I've been called Sir for a while. Alright. Well, the gun is so far together, I suspect that it kicks like an absolute dog. But that's because it's a very lightweight short stock side by side that's quite loose on the face anyway.
I was going to say, it's got I think headache is a bit of an understatement.
It's got bloody coronavirus, mate.
It's got a severe migraine.
Ready, next shots. Would you like some of this punishment?
Let's spread it around a bit, shall we? Here we go.
Right, should we change back over for a second?
Indeed. And the good news, of course, is that correctly loaded 65mm 2.5 inch cartridges are in the pipeline in steel from all the manufacturers, as I understand it.
We realised that would be a good place to start right now. Right, well, so far, Nick, we're a good portion through that box.
6/8.
There is no bulging No nothing.
That's the 16th cartridge.
Chorused. This gun is quite poorly, which is the reason we're, well, potentially, well, I wouldn't even say taking this risk with it. Neither of us own a decent side-by-side, or else we'd use that. And to use someone else's for this test probably would be unfair just in case.
Yes.
Everyone is, well, certain people are right. Ready. Like he's swinging the gun off the face to try and minimise recoil. Right. Single and choke barrel.
All 25?
All 25. Let's go indoors and see if it's exactly the same as when we took it out.
Yep.
So there you have it, we've put a box of ammunition through an old and fragile English gun with 26 thou wall thickness barrels. Ooh. And it survived.
Absolutely. It's survived with flying colours. And again, just to sort of quantify the parameters of this test, a lot of the online hyperbole and terror about steel shot is that, oh, I've got a good quality English gun, I can't use steel shot through it. Well, it is just conceivable that you might actually be able to do that without damaging the gun.
That's pretty much the bottom line there, isn't it? Is that this gun may not be the best gun. All right, it is not. It's far from a best gun, but it is a very average quality English gun.
Yeah.
And if this gun can take steel through what is a improved cylinder or a 6 thou and a 32 thou just over 3/4 choke with no bulging, no nothing, no issues, then it's fine. The only thing that this gun did was kick like a demon because it's short stopped, lightweight, and see if you can hear this over the sirens.
Yeah, severe migraine.
Yeah, and it's absolutely fine.
Yes.
The end, pretty much, isn't it? That's as much as we can conclude from that. Your gun's fine because it's Spanish.
Yeah.
This gun's fine.
Because it's English and it's within the basic parameters for the use with steel shot.
And we're not putting magnum steel through it like you are with yours.
Absolutely. And perhaps, just perhaps, this kind of pushes open the door to the fact that steel shot is not, generally speaking, as destructive of English guns as popular mythology would have you believe.
I was one last PS before we go. Would you have done this to a Holland and Holland, Nick? Because that's the thing is, I wouldn't do it to my Purdy, I wouldn't do it to my Holland.
Well, I think I would, and I think that as time progresses and we move away from the current anti-steel shot hysteria and into the sort of shining uplands of reality, one of the things that's worth looking at was a quick video clip on the Basque YouTube site.
It was about the only video on the Basque YouTube site.
It's that's another whole issue, but the gist of it is this: it was Danish shooters. Danish shooters have been using steel through good quality English guns for 20 years, and a couple of chaps on there. One of them was saying that I think both of them, in fact, were using them through old English Damascus-barreled hammer guns, and had been for 20 years, putting thousands of cartridges through the guns with absolutely no issue whatsoever. Even more encouraging is the fact that, as I understand it, most of the steel shot cartridge manufacturers are going to be producing a true 2.5-inch 65mm cartridge for use in English game guns.
For those of you who have bared with us this long, we'll let you into a little secret. We put 70mm cartridges through this gun, even though it's got a 65mm chamber.
Yeah.
And we're still here.
Yes. And again, because I know that will generate...
we don't recommend it, though, obviously.
No, absolutely not recommended, but it's something done with the judgment of the wisdom of years. We've all seen inappropriate cartridges fired through guns, and the fact of the matter is that, generally speaking, the vast majority of them simply do not blow up. I will try and be a little bit careful about what I say, but I think that we've kind of veered away from practical experience of guns into almost like the sort of nanny state mentality, where the conception of what actually might go wrong is a long way from the reality of what actually happens if you overload a gun.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get the approved safety sort of site, or an approved safe site to use, it might be interesting at some point in the future, maybe next year, to blow some guns up.
Yes, the one yardstick I've got for that, some of you will have seen the American YouTube film produced by Concept, which is the Confederation of North American, I can't remember what the acronym is, but it was filmed in the 1980s, about the use of steel shot, particularly for wildfowling, and the name of the chap who made the film has gone out of my head, but you can find it on YouTube. Where I'm going with this is that he was using some really fierce American cartridges through his Remington over and under. Although he didn't use that particular gun, because he still has it to this very day, what he did do was to obtain a Remington over and under and progressively home load cartridges until the gun actually did blow up. It gave out at the breech. I can't remember the exact figures, but the pressures that it was generating were ludicrous. He was having to part muzzle load it to get the powder and the
shot quantities
and the shot quantities in, because the safety margin of any gun between the usual safety parameters and the point of destruction is huge. You've really got to go some to blow a gun up.
Well, maybe we'll get in touch with the Proof House and make that an English reality, although I can't think of any guns I'd like to blow up. This feels quite sad.
Yes,
but hey, that's by the by.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's all sorts of interesting avenues, rabbit holes that this could go down. I mean, I had an online conversation with somebody the other day who purported to have phoned up one of the proof houses, I can't remember if he was specific, and was told, allegedly, by someone in the proof house that if he fired any steel cartridge through an English side-by-side with greater than half choke, it would, and he emphasised would, that it was guaranteed that it would damage it. Well, we've just done it, and it didn't. Now, what does that say? Either the chap who reported that conversation was mistaken, and I won't even go what the other alternative is, because patently one of them's not true.
Indeed. Right, thank you very, very much. Guys, if you've enjoyed this, perhaps consider becoming a member and allowing us to do more action, cool stuff like this, at the risk of blowing up old and exciting guns. Thank you very much for coming in, Nick. It's been absolutely brilliant. Until next time, mate.
Thank you.